The shelf test. Quick question before we start. Pull up your reading list in your head, the books, the podcasts, the seminars, and ask yourself, how much of that has actually rearranged your life? Not your vocabulary, not your Instagram bio, your actual lived Tuesday morning life. For most people, the honest answer is uncomfortable. Bookshelves are full, notes apps are full. But the person looking back in the mirror is basically the same person from 3 years ago, just better read. Here's the uncomfortable truth we're digging into today. The problem was never a shortage of information. It's that most of us have quietly become collectors instead of builders. Welcome to the channel. If you're new here, this is where we turn ideas into action instead of letting them gather dust. Hit subscribe if that sounds like something you need more of. The collector's trap. Somewhere along the way, we adopted a strange belief that consuming more content is the same thing as becoming more capable. One more book, one more masterclass, one more 5 a.m. club video. Surely this is the one that finally flips the switch, but information sitting in your head, untouched, isn't progress, it's inventory. And inventory doesn't build anything on its own. It just sits there, making you feel productive while nothing moves. Picture two people. The first has read everything there is to read about strength training. He can explain protein synthesis, recovery windows, progressive overload better than most trainers. He has never once stepped foot in a gym. The second read a single article on walking and decided to walk every morning before work. Nothing fancy, no spreadsheet, just consistency. Fast forward a year. One of them has a stack of knowledge. The other has a different body, different energy, different life. You already know which one. Rohn's real point people love quoting Jim Rohn for the punchy one-liners, but the actual core of his teaching was simpler than most people give it credit for. Results are not random. They are the direct output of ordinary actions, repeated without exception over long stretches of time. Not secret information, not rare talent. Repetition of the basics, which means the person drowning in advice and the person quietly getting results were probably never separated by what they knew. They were separated by what they were willing to actually do with it. Why we keep buying books we never use. Here's the part nobody likes to admit. Sometimes buying the book is the goal. It feels like movement. Highlighting a paragraph feels like commitment. Screenshotting a quote feels like discipline. None of it is. It's a comfortable disguise for avoidance, because starting is scary, and reading about starting is not. So ask yourself honestly, when you pick up the next book, are you trying to change something, or are you trying to postpone something? There's a real meaningful line between learning and stalling disguised as learning, and most people cross it without noticing. The one question filter. From now on, before opening anything new, a book, a course, a thread, ask one question: am I actually going to use this? If the honest answer is no, close it. Not out of laziness, out of respect for your own time. Every hour spent absorbing content you'll never apply is an hour stolen from the life you're supposedly trying to build. People who actually go somewhere in life aren't the ones who know the most. They're the ones who ruthlessly narrow down to a handful of ideas and hammer them into daily practice until the results show up. Too much input creates paralysis, not clarity. Here's a side effect almost nobody talks about. Past a certain point, more input doesn't sharpen your thinking, it scrambles it. One voice says wake up at 5 a.m., another says sleep is sacred, one says take the risk, another says protect what you have. One says grind harder, another says work smarter and rest more. Load enough contradicting opinions into your head and you don't get wisdom, you get gridlock. You stop moving because you're too busy trying to reconcile advice that was never meant to be reconciled. Clarity doesn't come from reading one more perspective. It comes from testing something in the real world and watching what actually happens. You can read 50 pages on public speaking and still freeze the moment you're handed a microphone. Experience teaches things books physically cannot. Sharpens. What a book is actually. For a book isn't a trophy. It's not something you finish to prove you're the kind of person who reads. It's a tool, and tools only matter if you pick them up and use them. If one chapter hands you a single usable idea, that might be the whole value of the book, right there. You're allowed to stop. You're allowed to skip the bestseller everyone's talking about. You're allowed to ignore the trend entirely. Imagine spending an entire year on